Yeah, so before I start the video, I just wanted to say if for some reason you don't know what DPH or DXM is and you're watching this video, I will put a lot of stuff in the description explaining what they are and info about them, and also in the description will be the song name and a link to the song and anything else I need to put down there. So yeah, please check that out before you watch the video, and thank you. So I first heard about DPH a little while after getting into drugs. It's kind of hard to be a DXM user without hearing about it at least once, because a lot of times it's used at medical doses to help with the nausea that DXM causes. I heard about the weird deliriant effects that DPH causes at high doses, and it sounded pretty scary but also really interesting. So I decided I wanted to try it, and I'm just going to briefly talk about first DPH experience because it was a much lower dose and not much worth talking about really happened. So I'm going to talk about 2 trips in this video, I guess. So yeah, I got the Benadryl and I waited till I was ready to take it, and I took 275 mgs of it. I started feeling really heavy and went down to lay in bed, and it kicked in even more and I started feeling really weird. It didn't feel good at all because DPH really doesn't feel good like most drugs, but it didn't feel that bad. So I remember I just kept repeating, this is a very neutral experience, over and over in my head. I just kept having weird thoughts that didn't make any sense. I laid in my bed in the dark for hours not doing anything. I didn't get any open eye visuals, but I do remember getting some touch hallucinations, because I do this thing where I touch my hair because it's soft, and I hallucinated that I did that. I also got this thing where I kept thinking I was on my phone, but I would open my eyes and remember that my phone was next to me and I wasn't using it, and that happens a lot to me on DPH. I call it brain phoning, but that happened. But other than that, and just getting weird thoughts and feeling weird, not much else really happened, and eventually I got bored and fell asleep, and overall it was a pretty meh experience. But I did want to try DPH again after that, so a while later I went with my friend Tony and my friend Doug to the store, and Tony's been in a lot of my videos so far, and Doug is gonna end up being in a lot of them too, but unlike Tony, I'm rarely going to be saying anything positive about Doug because he's kind of a fucking idiot and I don't really like him very much anymore. But anyway, we all 3 walked down to the store by his house, and we got one thing of Benadryl pills with DPH in them, which added up to 400 milligrams DPH, and we also got a thing of cough gels with DXM in them that I'd also end up taking during the trip. I don't remember how much mg that was, but we started walking back to Tony's house, and Doug was being a fucking spaz and just randomly pushed me to the ground and started punching me, and I really fucking hurt my hand. And he was like, "Oh, sorry dude, I didn't mean to hurt you." And I was like, okay, whatever. But the whole walk back, my hand was still hurting, and I got back to Tony's house and went home and rested for a while, and by the time I wanted to dose for my trip, my hand was still hurting. And the big problem with that is it's already hard to open the fucking Benadryl package because each pill is individually wrapped. So I had to fucking bite them open and then drink water right afterwards, and I had to keep going back to get more water, and it took me forever. It felt like it took 20 minutes to dose the whole thing, but eventually I dosed them all, and then I just dosed all the cough gels at once to get the DXM in me, and then I waited for a while for it to kick in, and I laid down. I started to feel it a little bit. I started to get those weird thoughts and weird body feelings, and I started brain phoning a little bit, I think, but eventually I started to see stuff with my eyes open. There was a white flashing light on my ceiling, and then I think I looked out the window and I saw my first complex open eye visual on DPH. there were these like weird middle-aged looking men with bright orange shirts and beige baseball caps, like beating each other up, and they all looked like clones of each other, and it just looked super weird. A little bit after that, I started seeing fake versions of my friends. They were like fully autonomous and capable of moving on their own, and they seemed to be like thinking and like seemed like they were alive, and it was super weird. But there's a fake version of Doug, and I think there was one of Tony, and also my other friend Jade, who hasn't been in any videos, but she was there too. And I was aware enough to know they weren't real at that point, I guess, and I kept saying like, even though you guys are fake, you're still really cool. I'm gonna like tell the real versions about you guys, and like thank you guys for being here with me, even though you aren't real. And they seemed to understand me when I spoke, but they never spoke back to me, and I never questioned why they didn't speak. It just didn't seem weird to me. I also realized if I tried to touch them, my like hands would go through them, and I kept asking the fake version of Doug to come over to me so I could put my hand through him to remind myself that he wasn't real. I think at one point I decided it would be a good idea if I went and like laid in my bathroom floor, because I wanted to make it fully dark in there, because for some reason I got this dumb idea that like light would like make my DPH trip like weaker, and so I had to have it like as dark as possible. And I mean, like, you do get more visuals in the dark, but like I think it was dark enough in my room. I was just being retarded, and especially because like my family was home, and if they needed to use the bathroom at night, like I'd be screwed, because I wasn't coherent enough to respond to them, and if they just even went to the bathroom at once, I'd be screwed. But I thought it was a good idea. I decided to do it, but it was also like almost impossible to walk at that point. It felt like my brain had forgot how to, and on top of like bumping into like the actual walls, I started seeing like glass walls and pier in front of me that like I couldn't phase through and would block my path. Just getting to the bathroom was a huge pain in the ass, but once I did get there, I like very slowly laid down after locking the door, because I thought like I would fall through the floor if I didn't, and I just laid with my head up against the door and like my feet towards the toilet. I think I stayed there like a large part of the trip, and I think I kept going back and forth between my room, the bathroom, but it was really hard to tell, because when I was in the bathroom, it'd start to look like my bedroom, and I'd think I was on my bed, and when I was in my bedroom, it would start to look like the bathroom, and it was super confusing, so I couldn't really tell where I was. But I think I did go back and forth a decent amount of times, but I know eventually I did go back to my room for real, and I didn't go back to the bathroom again. And the fake versions of my friends were still there for some reason, and the glass walls from before kept showing up, and they were like weird and green and kind of circular. I could actually touch them, unlike the fake versions of my friends. And also for some reason I think I thought like the fake version of Doug put them there, and I was mad at him. And I was like picking one up and trying to move it off my bed, and I asked the fake version of Jade for help, but I said like, wait, never mind, you're a hologram, you can't interact on the physical world. When I remembered that she wasn't real, they kept appearing around my bed, and I couldn't really get out of my bed at that point, and I kept bumping into them, and I'd feel like actual pain. So I got like trapped by them in my bed, and no matter what I could do, I couldn't get out. I think at that point, it was getting really hard to keep my eyes open, and I shut my eyes, and I was kind of like in this micro dream where I was like dreaming, but I was still awake, and I thought I was in the school art room, and everything was dark for some reason, and I was still on DPH and like unable to function at school, and I kept making an ass out of myself and being really sus. I went through that for a while, and every now and then I'd open my eyes again and like see the glass around my bed. And I was too like brain dead at that point to realize that like the switch happened when I closed my eyes, and I thought I was changing between two universes, and then I needed to break out of like the glass in my bed to break the loop and actually like move on with my life. But I could never like get out of the glass around my bed, and it was really hard to keep my eyes open anyway, so I think I was just mostly in the dream for the rest of the trip. I think like a bunch of weird stuff happened in there, like I dropped like some pills in the dream and the teacher saw them and was really sus of me, and I kept knocking stuff over and being unable to move, and I think there was like a room full of clay dildos that kids made in pottery class for some reason. But eventually I think I did fall asleep for real, and the next day I woke up feeling really shitty, and I looked through my Discord messages to see a bunch of gibberish messages I didn't remember sending. Overall, the trip wasn't really something I'd call like fun, but it was really interesting and weird, and that's all I really wanted out of DPH at the time, and I thought it was really cool and I wanted to try it again. But this trip was one of the strangest experiences of my life, and I'm glad I got to talk about it on this channel. And even though DPH like sucks ass and I wouldn't really recommend anyone try it, I'm still glad I at least had this trip, because it's just something crazy I'll remember for the rest of my life. And I did end up doing DPH like way too many times because I'm a fucking idiot, but at least I'll have more stuff to make into videos for you guys. So stay tuned for those when they drop, I guess. And thanks for listening. Goodbye.